President Biden is pledging his support for the people of Cuba. It comes amid protests that have erupted across the island nation, with thousands of people taking to the streets to call for change. They are rallying against food shortages and high prices. The economic crisis in the country has been worsened by the pandemic. Some of the protesters are demanding the Cuban president step down. CBS News correspondent Manuel Bojorquez reports from Miami.
Thousands of protesters gathered in communities around Havana and across the island nation, shouting freedom and "We are not afraid." Although protests began peacefully, they soon took a more violent turn as police and special forces moved in later on to break up the demonstrations. President Miguel Diaz-Canel himself made an appearance at one protest and spoke with some of the citizens who confronted him. Demonstrators here say they are fed up by food shortages, rising prices, collapsing infrastructure, and the government's response to a rising number of COVID-19 infections. On Saturday, Cuba recorded nearly 7,000 new cases. On Cuban television, Diaz-Canel blamed the protest on the U.S. and its trade embargo for a severe impact on Cuba's recent economic downturn.
The Trump administration passed many more regulations, many more sanctions against it, which basically has cut off all income coming into Cuba.
Portia Siegelbaum is a CBS News producer based in Cuba.
I think the Biden administration, he at least said at the beginning he was going to review this policy and make changes, but nothing has happened.
Several politicians have expressed their support for the Cuban people and those protesters, including Cuban-American Senator Marco Rubio. As one defector told our CBS Miami affiliate, seeing the protests was, quote, magical. Manuel Bojorquez, CBS News, Miami.
For more, CBS News producer Portia Siegelbaum joins us now from Havana, Cuba. Hi, Portia. Welcome. So can you tell us how the protests unfolded yesterday? Did they appear to have been organized? Were they spontaneous? And are there any opposition leaders emerging from those events?
They seem to be spontaneous, except that there was clearly a nucleus of people that was organizing them through social media. Really, in my neighborhood, everything was completely quiet. People were all watching the football game between Britain and Italy. And I started looking at Facebook and I thought, what's happening? And then we went out to see, and there was a small group that grew as they marched through the streets, because people on balconies in poor neighborhoods looked down and came down and joined them. A lot of young people joined them. Older people also, because the grievances that are hitting the population are hitting everybody. Everyone is suffering from the shortages that exist, and everyone is suffering from the pandemic. Tanya?
And as you pointed out, now there's the opportunity to sort of organize through social media. But what is the situation right now? Did the Cuban government shut off the internet at a certain point? Were there multiple arrests made? And is it clear whether there are any opposition leaders that might be stepping forward to sort of take up the mantle?
No, there doesn't seem to be an opposition leader that has any national prominence, any impact on the wider population. The government did apparently close down the internet, and I'm saying this as I'm praying my internet stays up, but on most cell phones, people lost their internet connection, or it became very, very unstable. Clearly, social media had been key in organizing these demonstrations. For several weeks now, they've been urging people to go out and demonstrate. And a lot of the websites that are doing this are not based in Cuba. They're based in Miami or elsewhere in the US. The other previous attempts flopped. People didn't show up for the demonstrations they were calling. But I think yesterday, sparked by the shortages, it was a Sunday. It's extremely hot here in Cuba. There have been blackouts. I think it just sparked people to move out and express how they were feeling.
Mm-hmm. And did it end peacefully, or was there some violence that erupted? Of course, we saw some video and some pictures of, even one or two reporters getting manhandled. We see, some video of what appears to be arrests. How did it end?
Well, that happened, but there also broke out a lot of violence among the protesters. There's video and pictures all across Cuba where they turned over even police cars and other vehicles in the street. There was rock throwing. One of the journalists got hit by a rock thrown by a protester. There was a lot of petty thievery going on where journalists here in Havana had their cell phones snatched out of their pocket. They lost their camera, was stolen. So there have been a number of incidents, but there definitely was violence on the part of the police, who seemed overwhelmed by this unexpected, unprecedented type of protest that they're not used to at all to handling here. And there was definitely violence also among the protesters. You don't know if it was the core people who organized it or it was just people that they picked up along the way who took advantage of the situation to engage in a little mayhem.
Right. And so, Portia, stepping back and taking a look at the larger picture, as you pointed out, there are a lot of shortages. The coronavirus is ravaging Cuba still. Of course, the Cuban government continues to blame the U.S. for its long-standing economic problems. If the Biden administration were to lift these sanctions, economic sanctions against Cuba, how much would that help the Cuban people? Is there a sense that these protests might actually make the U.S. step in a way that could be seen as helping the protesters?
It's a very difficult question. It would definitely help people. There's no question that when President Obama opened relations and American tourists began coming down here, cruise ships began coming, the tourism industry, which is a main source of hard currency for Cuba, not just for the government, but for people, was a tremendous help. The entire private sector of rental of B&Bs, the food industry, people who open private restaurants, who opened stores and shops selling souvenirs for the visitors. It bloomed, blossomed. This private sector in Cuba has hurt very badly since President Trump closed off the possibility of Americans coming down here as tourists. And reopening that would give an enormous boost to the private sector and to the country as a whole, because the money they earn, they then spend around the country. And also the government would benefit. The government is paying a very high cost in dealing with patients during the pandemic. Medical care here is completely free, all the hospitalization. They've been trying until the numbers have just skyrocketed to isolate and free without charge all people with symptoms but who have not yet been confirmed cases, all people who are contacts of confirmed cases, and even contacts of contacts, as a way to try to stop the spread of the virus. That's put a tremendous burden on the economy, and it leaves them much less money on which to import food and other consumer items, which people desperately want. So lifting the sanctions would be a tremendous boost.
And Portia, is there any sign that the Cuban government is continuing to sort of relax its parameters around what constitutes private businesses? As you pointed out, during the sort of wave of tourism that followed the softening of relations during the Obama administration, there was some tolerance for private businesses and a little bit of entrepreneurship. Not enough if you talk to certain, Cubans living on the island, but there seemed to be some softening around that. What is happening now in terms of the government? Is it showing any signs of loosening up, of allowing Cuban citizens more freedoms?
Yes, absolutely. What they've approved now, and they're working on actually passing the law, but it was announced, is to allow small and medium-sized private businesses. Previously, you could open a restaurant, but you were considered a self-employed person, even as the owner. And everybody who worked for you had their own license as someone self-employed. Now that restaurant will be recognized actually as a small business with an owner and employees. And they're also talking about medium-sized businesses, which might do production in certain areas. There have been recycling businesses that have been started. All that could turn into actual businesses under the law and have a different status. There are still problems. They're still not allowing the private sector to import directly. All imports and exports go through government hands, and that's definitely a demand of the private sector, something they'd like to see. But you have seen some opening up because of economic necessity. The government realizes it has to loosen some of the ropes that it's been keeping.
Portia Siegelbaum in Havana, thank you so much for your reporting from there. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Tanya.